Alrighty, so take your time settling into your seat, whether you're laying down or sitting up, it doesn't matter too much. Do make sure that you have your journal next to you or near you for easy access. We're going to begin by bringing the palms together in prayer position, and this time we're going to press the thumbs into the sternum, into the heart space. If you can, if your clothing allow it for you to be skin to skin, that's ideal, but it's not a big deal if not. So just take your time settling in. I also always recommend reaching back and pulling the buttocks each side up and out. This gives you more alignment in your spine because instead of sitting on your tailbone, you're sitting more on the inside of the pelvic floor. Just take a few moments finding any small movement or shifts in the body. Relax the shoulders, relax the muscles of the face. We're going to begin by taking 3 deep and cleansing breaths. And with each exhale, I encourage you to sigh the air out the mouth and release tension and invite relaxation. So deep inhale here. One more deep inhale. This time hold the air at the top for just a moment. Suck in a little more air. Exhale, sigh it out. Letting the breath return to a natural flow. We'll give thanks and gratitude to Mother Earth, the ground beneath us that supports us, that is a part of that vital life force energy. We give thanks and gratitude to our higher selves, as well as to higher consciousness, to that oneness that unites us all. We invite that energy from above and below into this circle, grounding and connecting all of us that are here and that will be connected. Just for today, do not worry. Just for today, do not anger. Give thanks to all living things and be kind. Count your many, many blessings. Honor those that have come before you, your ancestors, lineage known and unknown. We honor those who have come before us, who have practiced the healing art of Reiki and blazed a path that we are currently on. We honor those who will come after us, ancestors known and unknown. And we honor those who will come after us, who will practice Reiki and continue this healing art. Take another moment or so to add anything to this offering to the higher power that you need to say or think or connect with. Finding about 3 more breaths here. Wonderful. And when this feels complete, you can relax the hands back down onto the lap. Make sure that the body is still relaxed and settled here. With your journals nearby, you can find those in your writing utensil and begin just to free write about the current state of your heart. Just begin to free write about the current state of your heart. We'll take about 5 minutes to do that. Take about 1 more minute here. All right, go ahead and be finishing up on the sentence that you're on. And we are going to open up the circle for sharing anything that's currently laid on your heart. There's no pressure to share, but I will ask, just as we're all calling in our energy and still getting to know one another, I will ask that you, at least at some point during this sharing portion, unmute yourself and just state your name, just your first name or whatever name you want to go by. And just state that you are here, and that's literally all you have to say. Or if you want to share anything at all. So we'll just popcorn around. Anyone who would like to go, would like to share anything about the current state of their heart or simply just check in, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, this is Kenny.
Hi, Kenny.
Right now my heart is in a current state of turmoil. I feel shame for feeling this way, but I also feel hurt and abandoned by my peers and feel quite isolated in my journey. I feel like as if I've walked up mountains and only to see more mountaintops ahead. And it's just like peeking at that horizon. But I'm grateful for the experience, yet I feel as if I am tired and weary.
Thank you. I see you. I hear you. I am you.
I feel something similar to Kenneth. I feel the weariness of my heart, but simply just being in the presence of other energetic adepts brings a sense of peace, and time kind of stills for a moment and breaths deepen. And I'm grateful to be in the presence and to be in this training and to receive that healing even from far.
I see you. I hear you. I am you.
Hi.
Hey, Nikki.
Okay. My heart feels calm but restless. I understand that this is a self journey, and I guess that's been the hardest part for me because all I want to do is help other people. But in doing so, I end up feeling very small and kind of lost and confused. Like I'm not on the same page with others. So in return, I've decided to go inward more, which makes me feel a little bit more calm, compassionate, understanding that we're all on our own journey and that's okay. The best thing we can give is love and support. I miss a lot of people, which makes me feel isolated as well. But I know that this journey will be worth it, which makes me feel whole.
Thank you. I see you. I hear you. I am you. Thank you.
This is Taylor. So I'm just going to share a little bit of what I wrote. Right now, my heart is hurting. It's filled with anger and rage, just for wanting to do the right thing. It hurts to see unfair situations and not having the ability to control it. I know that I do not need to control these situations. But it hurts to think that people can treat others in a harmful way. My heart has its boundaries, but it's also confused on what to do and where to go. Am I in the right place where I need to be? If not, what's ahead? If so, what's my lesson? I want to be able to see the truth and to unblock myself from the opportunities that lie ahead for me, um, to give me peace and guidance, no more heartache. I'm very grateful for the presence that I'm in right now, and the opportunities that I have, um, that are reaching out to me during this moment. Um, and I'm grateful to be doing this program because, never in a million years would I have thought to be in this state of mind like ever in my life. Um, so I'm very grateful for the small people that I do allow, to be in my life and to share the wonderfulness about that.
Thank you. I see you. I hear you. I am you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for sharing. I will also share the Alchemist Northwest Star. It's my chosen name. So the current state of my heart is heavy and weary as well. I feel tired and somewhat drained, even though I'm sleeping more than I have been able to in the past. But I also feel that I'm gaining this deep sense of clarity over both myself and my healing path and what medicine I'm to offer to the world. And being able to be connected with all of you all and be your guide while also letting you be on your own journeys has been very rewarding for me, and it's been filling my cup. But in the past few days, since the full moon has ended, I've been in the thick of my own personal healing and really wading through stuff that, I thought had healed. But as our world is a spiral, or our life path is a spiral, I've come back around to some uncomfortable personal issues dealing with feelings of abandonment, feeling small or wrong for practicing my own personal freedom, and also seeing the relation of miscommunication and blockages in communication, leading to a deep sense of pain. Yeah. So thank you all. All right. So we're going to dive right in. If you want to keep your journals out to take notes, you're more than welcome to. And know that all the calls get recorded and they get thrown onto the Google Drive that we share. I'm going to actually do a little showing of that Google Drive here at the end of this call, just to make sure that everyone can access it. But yeah, so we're just going to dive right in. We're going to be learning about just the in-depth use of Reiki. This specifically is going to be related to the balancing of scales of your intuition and your ego. And we're going to address both of those today. We're going to start with the intuition. And this information comes from chapter 4 of your Usui Reiki manual. We'll talk about the manuals here in a bit as well. So Reiki is an easy healing technique that you can use. And after receiving a Reiki attunement, which we're also going to talk about the attunement process and when we'll be receiving those towards the end of this call. But after receiving the Reiki attunement, all that is necessary to start Reiki flowing is to request that it do so. Just ask or intend, and it will begin to flow at will. And this can be done simply by inviting in the Reiki energy or simply stating the word Reiki out loud to yourself at the beginning of a healing session. Reiki is always ready to flow, and it will do so whenever you want it to. Simply placing your hands on someone with the intention of giving a session will be enough. to start Reiki flowing. It is not necessary to meditate, it's not necessary to concentrate or to use your own will in any way in order to start Reiki flowing. It does it all on its own accord. It does it so easily that just thinking or talking about it even turns it on. And actually, as we're talking, I'm beginning to feel Reiki flow through my palms. They're heating up. Can always tell because my extremities, my fingers and my toes generally are cold, and my palms are generally very warm. But one thing that sometimes happens, especially in groups, is that the people giving Reiki will begin talking. This tends to focus the attention away from Reiki and away from the client who's receiving healing, or yourself if you're receiving the healing. So although Reiki will continue to flow even while talking is occurring, it does tend to work much better when you're in a meditative state and allowing your consciousness to merge with Reiki energy. When I'm giving Reiki to a client, or if I'm doing it in a group and I don't necessarily know the individual's name that I'm working on, I will just say, may the Reiki energy flow to the healing, to the highest good and healing of this person. Or if I know their name, I'll plug their name in, respectively, where it should go. When giving a Reiki session, it's important to keep your fingers together, kind of like this. This will concentrate the energy and it will create a stronger flow for it to come out the palm chakras. Be aware of the sensations. Most often it's warmth that you feel in your palms, but it could be tingling, vibrations, pulsing, or a flow of energy. Again, just listen to your intuition. Imagination is often a word for intuition. To me, they're intermingled, and we'll get into that in a bit. But you may also feel Reiki flowing through other parts of your body. That's quite common. As you dwell on Reiki, your mind will begin to be aware of the Reiki consciousness. You may experience this as a feeling of relaxation, of joy, of well-being, security, unlimited potential, pure potentiality, freedom, creativity, beauty, balance, harmony, and any other positive state. That was just to name a few. Allow these feelings, even though they're coming through Reiki, allow these feelings to become your own. That over time, merging yourself with the sensations of Reiki will again create a stronger energetic flow for Reiki over time. If other thoughts come up during a session, gently push those away and bring your awareness back to the consciousness of Reiki or back to the person that you're healing. Again, using a simple mantra like, may this healing go to the highest good and healing of such and such or this person. This will allow Reiki to be much stronger and allow it to be concentrated more clearly where it needs to go. And then in turn, you're also receiving the deep healing. So the more you stay aware and conscious of it, the more it's able to flow. By meditating on the consciousness of Reiki, you will also be entering into a state of mind that will allow your Reiki guides to work more closely with you. They will be better able to channel the Reiki through you, as well as send it directly to your clients. Hold on, someone sent me a chat. Oh no. Well, that's probably actually a good place to pause. Let's see. Oh, difficult to hear. Yeah, I did have something over my speaker. My bad. Did you guys hear that okay, though? If not, I can give you the highlights. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. It was fine. It was just muted.
Gotcha. No, that's good to know. Thanks. I also have my volume settings a little different than normal. Let me adjust those real quick. Okay. So, a few other pieces are the most important way to increase the effectiveness of Reiki is to invite it to come from a place of love. So from just a place of purity and clarity coming from your heart space, this will create a feeling of emotional safety, both for your clients and encourage them to more fully accept the Reiki energy that's flowing to them and through you. It also opens the doors to your healing potential, increasing and providing a deeper healing for you. Another interesting effect is that Reiki sometimes flows out of the bottom of your feet. If you feel this happening, feel free to use your feet to give Reiki. I've actually received a Reiki session with someone's feet on my back, and it is it's lovely, really, but it works just as well as using the palm chakras. So by standing close to clients, the Reiki that flows from your feet will treat the client's aura before entering the body where it is needed. So, just even if it's just flowing through the soles of your feet, know that it is going to the client. It may simply travel up the outsides of your legs and be added to the Reiki coming through your hands. The question sometimes comes up as to the minimum and maximum amount of time that Reiki should be given. Since Reiki is guided by spiritual consciousness, it can never cause harm. You can never give too little or too much Reiki. If all you have is a few minutes to give Reiki, like 5 to 20 minutes to give a friend Reiki, then go ahead. Often Reiki sessions are an hour long to 2 hours long, depending. But don't feel like if you don't have that much time that you can't give Reiki. It can literally be given anywhere, anytime, and it will always, always help. You can never tell how much good even a short session will provide. While specific results cannot be guaranteed, short sessions of a few minutes or less have relieved things like headaches, toothaches, bee stings. They've helped reduce bleeding if that's happening, and even set and mend broken bones, along with many other valuable results. On the other hand, sessions of several hours or longer can only improve the value of Reiki. You will not overcharge the client with Reiki energy or cause any harm whatsoever when giving a longer session. So Reiki also, besides your hands and your feet, it can come from other areas of your body. So again, this is like an intuitive feeling wherever you feel that energy flowing from. Often I use, again, for me, imagination and intuition become intermingled. And so I might picture Reiki flowing out of my heart space. Or if for whatever reason my solar plexus is where that needs to come from, I might feel energy flowing out of my solar plexus. And as we get into we'll do some exercises in a few weeks that will let you kind of know what your guiding intuition is. Mine specifically comes from my solar plexus, but there's many other chakras that an individual's intuition flows from. So we'll get very acquainted with that. It's called human design. If you feel like going ahead and looking that up, you're more than welcome to. But I'll give that as an assignment here in a few weeks, or maybe a week. So again, the sensations that you might feel flowing from different areas of your body, or that the client might feel where they're receiving, those sensations often show up in the form of warmth and kind of a buzzing or tingling feeling. Sometimes you can even get waves of cold, and there's no definite thing that each one of those means. Those are just all sensations that can arise, plus many, many more. So just keep in mind when you're working on yourself or working on others, just to be open and aware of this. It's good to know about them so that way you're not like freaked out by them or think that something weird is happening, even though Reiki is kind of weird. It's one of the reasons I love working with it. But it is all deeply healing. So for an example of this, when the hands are placed on the head, Reiki will treat the head, but also may travel down to the stomach or wherever else it might be needed. Conversely, when the hands are placed on the stomach, Reiki could treat other areas, such as it could flow up to the neck and the head. Treating the feet can also result in Reiki flowing to the back. So there's just because your hands are placed somewhere and working on a specific area, Reiki is guided by that higher consciousness, that higher intelligence. It's always going to go where it needs to go most. This doesn't always happen, but when it does, it is because you have placed your hands on an energetic doorway that links the two areas of the body, or the energy field together. The energetic doorway opens to a bridge or pathway through which Reiki flows to the other area that is needed. The body and energy fields are holistic in nature and interconnect within themselves in ways that don't always seem to make sense. But finding where the doorway is located for a specific condition allows us to provide a more effective Reiki session. These energetic doorways are specific to the individual client, and they could change as the client heals. It's important to understand that this doesn't mean that Reiki will always flow to wherever it is needed, as some have thought. It simply means that the best place to treat an area isn't always over the area where the symptom exists. So just keeping that in mind. Because of this, the best way to treat a condition is to use your own intuition and find the energetic doorway to the cause of the condition, which may be, again, in another location on the body or the aura, and you can place your hands there. So again, in summary, like if you're treating a stomach issue, it might not be that the hands need to go on the stomach. It might be that the hands be placed on the head, the hands, or the feet, or even someplace on the legs in order to treat the root cause of where that stomach condition is coming from. So your intuition, it plays a very important role when treating specific symptoms. This method was taught by the first Reiki teacher, or excuse me, by William Lee Rand's first Reiki teacher, and that person was taught by Takata Sensei. So first try placing your hands over an area of concern. If you feel a lot of Reiki flowing, then stay there. However, if Reiki does not flow well, ask the client what he or she is feeling. If neither of you feels that Reiki is treating the area of concern, then ask your intuition to simply show you where that doorway is. Move your hands wherever your intuition directs you. If you feel more Reiki flowing there and the client reports more symptoms either subsiding or deeper sensation, then you will know that your intuition is working well. And there's many, many ways that we'll learn, depending on what level you move through. There's many different ways of tools that will help you tune in and work with your intuition. So right now, we're going to all together bring our hands back to that prayer position, and you're just going to rub the hands vigorously. So just take a few minutes to do so. And then once you feel some heat in the hands, you're going to just gently let the hands separate and imagine a sphere of light being any color between the palms. And you can kind of play with this energy here between the hands, imagining that ball of light somewhat like putty, being able to be expanded out wide and then come back together. And then let your palms separate and imagine that sphere of light separating into two individual spheres of light floating above the palms. We'll use our imagination here, but it may help to close the eyes to really feel the energy that's radiating above each palm, or any symptom or any sensation that you feel above the palms. So from here, starting with the crown of the head, we're going to bring the hands above the head. And you're just simply going to run your hands or let your hands hover over each of the main chakra points. And we'll move through this together. And all you're doing is noticing what you notice. So from the crown chakra, we're going to bring both hands. You can bring them together. Remember to keep your fingers cupped. And you're going to bring it above the third eye. And we're just hovering. We're not actually touching these places. Let any images or sensations or colors come to you here. There's no wrong or right. Next, you're going to bring the hands down to the throat chakra. So this can be somewhat over the mouth and the throat area. Again, just noticing what you notice. Move the hands down to the heart space, and you can adjust your hands in any way that you need to as you move down the body. Remembering to keep the fingers together. Move down to the solar plexus. This is the space just above the navel. Move down to the sacral chakra. This is the area just below the navel. And then finally, you can move the hands just to hover above the legs or the thighs or even the feet, wherever you feel like your root chakra, wherever you're called to for your root chakra. When that feels complete, you can come back to this space. Again, I'm going to open it up here. If you want to take a minute or two and journal, we'll take 3 minutes max. If you want to journal about any sort of anything, maybe you didn't feel anything, and you can write that down. But just journal about what came up for you in each area. I cannot keep up with my pen tonight. And of course, if you need to run your palms back over any area, hover your palms back over any area, feel free to do so. Alrighty, we're gonna open up the floor again. If anyone has any questions or would like to share, just you can unmute yourself and do so. You can share about all your areas or you can share about one. It's just a simple exercise. No wrong or right here.
I'll share.
Okay.
So, when I very first started, I obviously felt the warmthness within my palms the whole entire time. Starting from the head, working my way down, instantly got like an automatic headache. Just like not in a severe sense, um, but just to where it was very noticeable. It was there for me to notice. Working my way down, I did feel a sense of like negative space being cleared. Hold on just a second. Negative space being cleared.
Mm.
I lifted. And there was a sense of clarity or emptiness. Kind of felt like, I gained a little bit of my power back there. Working my way down into the stomach area, I just like automatically had this like sense of just nauseousness, wanting to puke. It was a very strong feeling, but it was over within a matter of seconds. It was just a very onset feeling. That's about all I got. I felt the warmth the whole time. I felt tingling going throughout, like within my legs, things like that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I guess I can go. This is Kenny. Around the crown and the third eye was like a heavier, dense energy. I felt like I wanted to pluck it out because it was just like really just heavy.
Mhm.
And also like once I got to the throat, it was like a breezy feeling. My palms felt more cool than hot. I noticed that difference as I shifted to the throat. As I got to the heart, I felt like it was burning again, but a lot hotter than before.
Mm.
It was hotter than it was when I had rubbed my palms together, actually. And I was like, why is it a little bit hot right here? And then my heartbeat was speeding up too, and I noticed that as well.
Mm.
Once I reached the solar plexus, it was the heavier, dense energy that was around like the crown area is almost similar. And I just had a sensation of when they just pull it out. The sacral was fluttery and jittery. And once I got to the root, it was shaky and hot, but not as hot as the heart was.
Gotcha. Mm. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Does anybody else want to share? I'll give it like 5 more seconds. If not, we'll move on.
Hey.
Hey, look.
So I guess I'll start with just the top down, like we did in the sequence. Yeah, in the crown chakra, I felt a release of tension. I'm not sure what that means yet, but it was there. Not sure why, but on the third eye, I just like had this weird visualization of a crying baby.
Ooh.
And I'm just like, I don't like that. So I don't know if that was like a weird psychic thing or like connection to my inner child that I'm not sure about yet, but I'll have to go back on that one, I think, and explore that further. The throat was really nice. It was very warm and comforting on my lips, and heart, by God, I needed that one for sure. There's a lot of energetic healing to be done there, and I need to definitely go through a practice of that. And yeah, maybe get a session from you at some point.
We're gonna do that.
Yeah. Then solar plexus, there was a bit of disease. just kind of uncomfortability, and I'm not sure if that's like because my inner fire is kind of wonky. Like I'm being directive with my energy, with my momentum as like in my daily life, but I wonder if my direction is not where it should be, and that's why there's some dis-ease, because I'm active, I'm doing these things, but does that mean it's overactive, destabilized, or what? So that's gonna need some checking into as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sacral was kind of interesting. I'm kind of a sexual being, so but I wanted to just like not be for a little bit, like for a while, which was interesting. It just was like, hey, you need to back off that and just feel things for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And Rooted didn't really experience too much, but the whole experience was pretty pleasant. So, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Hi.
Hey, Nikki.
I actually did this yesterday in a way through a meditation, and I actually had an interesting experience because I felt it more yesterday than I did today. And I'm curious, is it because I ate a bunch of candy? Yeah, I find that when I eat caffeine, I drink caffeine or eat candy, immediately my alignment is just, it's off, okay? And I know what to do to fix it, but it's crazy how I noticed such a big difference. And I know it's Easter, so I divulged a little bit. But I will say this, the crown and the third eye and the throat, I definitely felt. And then as it went down, it was like the energy, I lost it a little bit, is how I kind of felt about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nikki brings up a very good point on, and I know we talked about this in when we discussed the process of clearing and getting ready for an attunement, but also like any sort of scanning or Reiki flowing, it is hindered, I guess you could say, or it has more to move through, I would say, when we have candy or sugar or caffeine or just anything that is going to throw off our equilibrium. It's not to say those things are bad, because they do serve a purpose. And I mean, we all should be able to treat ourselves and everything in moderation. And then also other aspects that can seemingly kind of tend to change is actually time of day. So if you, closer to the time that you wake up in the morning, you have more vital energy typically when you first wake up. And this is if, you're for the most part imbalanced, not imbalanced. But when you are in balance, you have more vital energy in the morning, and as the day goes on, your circadian rhythm tends to bring you down. So it's the same thing as if you're trying to access Reiki energy in the evening hours. It's not going to be more difficult, but your energy has already been expended throughout the day, so you're going to be less likely to feel it. It's still going to be flowing through, but you're going to be less likely to kind of feel it. Yeah, so what we just practiced there was Boysen scanning. And we just went over the chakras, but with Boysen scanning, we might do the whole area of the body. When we're working with a client, we'll do the whole area of the body. And even on ourselves, you might do the whole area of the body. And with Boysen scanning, you're more so getting an energy reading. So you're looking for or searching for your intuition. Like Logan had good insight to, my heart space needs a lot of healing. And just like different areas, and know that what your intuition pulls out and brings up is pertinent to you, especially if you're working on yourself, or to your client if you're working on an individual. So like Logan got a visual. There's, no prize for folks who get visuals. Some of you will have more sensation feelings. Some of you will see colors. And none of these are wrong. And none of them are overly right either. So just, again, it's all tied in with your intuition and what you feel and what you sense, and know that none of it is wrong. And sometimes, especially if you're working on another person, you might get sensations or colors or a visual, like of a memory or just like a very random thing. And know that if you're working on someone else, more than likely it's going to be pertinent to them. And while it's ideal not to talk during a session, if you feel that it can wait, you can just kind of log that away. And at the end of the session, you can bring up, if you feel called to, you can bring up anything that came up during another person's session. And they might be able to tell you more about it, or it might be something that just a message they need to receive, and then might not need to divulge any more information to you about it. But know that when we can set our ego aside and simply and humbly show up as the messenger and as the vessel, then we're allowing healing to work through us without letting our ego get involved. So that we just practiced is Boysen scanning. I'm going to encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to do it every day after you've spent time in your like quiet contemplative state. So then just do a little Boysen scanning and write down any messages that you receive as you move over. You can go over just the chakras, or you can go over the entire body, or do different parts. Maybe one day you do the legs, one day you do just the torso, as much of the back as you can reach. But yeah, that is Boysen scanning, which is typically how you, after prayer, after opening and inviting in guides, and setting the ambiance of the session, the next step in the process is generally doing that Boysen scanning. So we're going to learn all these pieces, these techniques one at a time, and then towards the end, not of tonight's class, but towards the end, after we've learned several techniques, I'll always tie them in and let you know where they can kind of fall in a Reiki session. But also know Reiki is about following your intuition and doing what you're guided to do. From my own personal experience, I was very, 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 I don't want to say afraid, but I will say I was very nervous. I was very uncertain, unsure of, like, as I was starting sessions, even though I'd practiced all these techniques, and like it would just flow into my intuition. Okay, now you need to Boysen scan. Okay, these are all the things you got. Okay, you need to work on the heart. I will say, if for any reason you don't intuitively receive any messages of where the Reiki needs to flow, first step back from whoever you're working on, or if it's yourself, just let your hands kind of come out to the side and just ask your intuition, higher consciousness, that oneness, source power, please guide me to where it is that I need to give or send Reiki healing. And it might even be good to throw in there, like, allow me to be a vessel for pure flowing Reiki energy, and just see if that doesn't give you a little more guidance of where to go. And if that doesn't work, then my fail-safe is to work on the heart space, specifically in this area. But when you're doing a session, you usually go through all of the Reiki hand positions, just coming back to that mantra of, may this Reiki healing go to the higher power and healing, or the highest good and healing of this individual. Always a fail-safe. So again, no right or wrong, just listen to your intuition. If you start to feel frustrated, if you start to be upset because it's not working out exactly the way you think it is, then that is your ego coming in and taking over. And when the ego is very present during a session, it can be difficult to kind of be in the session and in with the spirit of Reiki, because you've got caught up in your ego and what you think should be happening. So next we are going to learn a little bit about the ego, but I do want to leave you with a quote from Mother Teresa before we move on to this next portion. There is light in this world, a healing spirit much stronger than any darkness we may encounter. We sometimes lose sight of this force. Where there is suffering, too much pain, we tend to lose sight of this force. But suddenly the spirit will emerge through lives of ordinary people and answers in extraordinary ways. The higher power speaks in the silence of the heart, and we listen. So a little quote there by Mother Teresa. So, does anybody have any questions about using the intuition during a Reiki session or anything that we've discussed, or Boysen scanning? Open it up for a moment or two for any questions at all. No? Okay.
I have a question. I was wondering, when you said the Reiki goes to where it's needed, and there's some energetic portals or energetic places that are on the body, I was wondering, is that somewhat linked to pressure points or not really? Or it's just based generally on the intuition on that person in general?
It's more linked to like the energy of that specific person.
Okay.
It'll go back through their past lives and then just their current life also of their past experiences. So, like one person might receive more healing through the hands, and maybe that's because, it could be a number of reasons, but I'm just going to kind of make one up. And maybe that's because they work with their hands all of their life, and maybe even in their past lives, they were like a manual laborer. But somebody else might receive more Reiki through their feet, and that could be because maybe they never really were on their feet very much. Maybe they were someone who was always sitting or laying down. And so maybe they receive more Reiki energy through their feet. So it's really just dependent on the person. And again, just tied to where your intuition leads you to go. Great question. Any others? No? Okay. Well, we
I
are.
have one more. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No, don't be sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I love questions.
So many questions. Okay. With the Boysen scanning, when we feel certain types of energy, is that like linked to that's that based on our own intuition? If that's linked to something, or do we normally just like go based off that?
Yes. So if
Okay.
you're receiving any readings, it is based off of your own intuition. And again, you're working with a higher power. So begin to trust the higher power of your own spirit of what that message is. I'm so glad that you asked that question, Kenneth. It's really important for us to practice this, especially throughout this week, and begin writing down the messages that we're receiving. So I want you not just to practice it, but I also want you to journal it. And that will begin to build a stronger connection to our intuition, and it'll just help us understand that more. So that's why I'm like really wanting to assign to you all to at least do Boysen scanning 3 times, if not every day this week. On
I got
yourself.
one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, and with that, is it okay to just ask our higher self or ask source if what this is or what is this energy right here?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So if there's like an intense amount of uncertainty, just ask source to, yes, grant you the intuition and also the acceptance of what your intuition is showing us. Have you ever heard that phrase, like, sometimes we have to get out of our own way? Sometimes we can be in deep denial about whatever the message is. Like if the message is the color purple, then that's the message. We don't have to look too much farther into that. And it might continue to show itself, or we might see the color purple later that day, and then we'll immediately know, oh, that's where that came from. So just being aware that intuition comes in all sorts of messages from intuition come in all sorts of different ways, and they can come in very different ways than our thinking brain is used to processing. Hope that made sense.
Yep. Thank
Absolutely. Alrighty. All right, so we're gonna take like a 5-minute break because I want you guys to be able to go use the restroom or grab more water. I need more water. I'm out of water. Anything else that you need to do, and then be back in 5 minutes. And we're gonna probably spend another half hour on getting into. So you guys can see that this is Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth. Extremely, extremely relevant right now in what our situation is. Always relevant. But we're going to read some passages from this, and we're going to journal a bit on getting to know our ego. So go take 5 minutes, and we'll be back at 1:06. Or in, yeah, wait, what time is it? 9:08. I'm really bad at math. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Alrighty. Okay. So, settling in again, finding that comfortable seat. Is humanity ready for a transformation of consciousness? An inner flowering so radical and profound that compared to it, the flowering of plants, no matter how beautiful, is only a pale reflection. Can human beings lose the density of their conditioned mind structures and become like crystals or precious stones, so to speak, transparent to the light of consciousness? Can they defy the gravitational pull of materialism and materiality, and the rise above identification with form that keeps the ego in place and condemns them to imprisonment within their own personality? The possibility of such a transformation has been the central message of the great wisdom teachings of humankind. The messengers, Buddha, Jesus, Mother Teresa, and others, not all of them known, were humanity's early flowers. An essential part of awakening is the recognition of the unawakened you, the ego as it thinks, speaks, and acts, as well as the recognition of the collectively conditioned mental processes that perpetuate the unawakened state. This is why, specifically this book, but this is why the work shows that the main aspects of the ego and how they operate in the individual as well as in the collective. This is important for two related reasons. The first is that unless you know the basic mechanics behind the workings of the ego, you won't recognize it, and it will trick you into identifying with itself again and again and again. This means that it takes you over, an imposter pretending to be you in your own body. The second reason is that the act of recognition itself is one of the ways in which awakening happens. When you recognize that the unconsciousness is in you, that which makes the recognition possible is the arising consciousness, is the awakening. You cannot fight against the ego and win, just as you cannot fight against darkness. The light of consciousness is all that is necessary. You are the light. On our inherited dysfunction, if we look more deeply into humanity's ancient religions and spiritual traditions, we will find that underneath the many surfaces, there are differences. There are two core insights that most of them agree on. The words they use to describe those insights differ, yet they all point to a twofold fundamental truth. The first part of this truth is the realization that the normal state of mind of most human beings contains a strong element of what we might call dysfunction, or even madness. Certain teachings at the heart of Hinduism, perhaps some closest to seeing this dysfunction, as a form of collective mental illness. They call it Maya, the veil of delusion. Ramaya Maharishi, one of the greatest Indian sages, bluntly states, "The mind is Maya. The mind is the veil of delusion." Buddhism uses different terms. According to the Buddha, the human mind in the normal state generates dukkha, which can be translated as suffering, unsatisfactoriness, or just plain misery. He sees it as the characteristics of the human condition. Wherever you go, whatever you do, says the Buddha, you will encounter dukkha, and it will manifest in every situation sooner or later. According to Christian teachings, the normal collective state of humanity is one of original sin. Sin is a word that has been greatly misunderstood and misinterpreted. Literally translated from the ancient Greek in which the New Testament was written, to sin means to miss the mark, as an archer who misses the target. So to sin simply means to miss the point of human existence. It means to live unskillfully, blindly, and thus to suffer and cause suffering. Again, the term, stripped of its cultural baggage and misinterpretations, points to the dysfunction inherent in the human condition, in the human mind. The achievements of humanity are impressive and undeniable. We have created sublime works of music, literature, painting, architecture, and sculpture. More recently, science and technology have brought about radical changes in the way that we live and have enabled us to do and create things that would have been considered miraculous even just 200 years ago. No doubt the human mind is highly intelligent, yet its very intelligence is tainted by its own madness. Science and technology have magnified the destructive impact that the dysfunction of the human mind has upon the planet, other life forms, and upon humans themselves. And this is why the history of the 20th century is where that dysfunction, that collective insanity, can be most clearly recognized. And a further factor is that the dysfunction is actually intensifying and accelerating. We only need to watch the daily news on television to realize that the madness has not abated, that it is continuing into the 21st century. Another aspect of the collective dysfunction of the human mind is the unprecedented violence that humans are inflicting on other life forms and the planet itself. The destruction of oxygen-producing forests and other plants and animal life, ill treatment of animals and factory farms, poisoning of rivers, oceans, the air, all driven by greed, ignorant of their connectedness to the whole. Humans persist in behavior that, if continued unchecked, can only result in their own destruction. The collective manifestations of the insanity that lies at the heart of the human condition constitute the greater part of human history. It is to a large extent a history of madness. If the history of humanity were the clinical case history of a single human being, the diagnosis would have to be chronic paranoid delusions and pathological propensity to commit murder and acts of extreme violence and cruelty against his perceived enemies, his own unconsciousness projected outwards, criminally insane with a few brief, lucid intervals. Fear, greed, and the desire for power are the psychological motivating forces not only behind warfare and violence between nations, tribes, religions, and ideologies, but also the cause of incessant conflict in personal relationships. They bring about a distortion in your perception of other people and yourself. Through them, you misinterpret every situation, leading to misguided action designed to rid you of fear and satisfy your need for more, a bottomless hole that can never be filled. It is important to realize, however, that fear and greed and the desire for power are not the dysfunction that we are speaking of, but are themselves created by the dysfunction, which is the deep-seated collective delusion that lies within the mind of each human being. A number of spiritual teachings tell us to let go of fear and desire, but those spiritual practices are usually unsuccessful. They haven't gone to the root of the dysfunction. Fear, greed, and desire for power are not the ultimate causal factors. Trying to become a good or better human sounds like a commendable and high-minded thing to do. Yet it is an endeavor you cannot ultimately succeed in unless there is a shift in consciousness, a shift in your awareness. This is because it is still part of the same dysfunction, a more subtle and rarefied form of self-enhancement, of desire for more and strengthening of one's conceptual identity, one's self-image. You do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already inside of you, and allowing that goodness to emerge fully and wholeheartedly. But it can only emerge if something fundamental changes in your current state of consciousness. Most ancient religions and spiritual traditions share the common insight that our normal state of mind is marred by a fundamental defect. However, out of this insight is the nature of the human condition. We may call it the bad news. Arises a second insight, the good news, the possibility of a radical transformation of human consciousness, a transformation that is sometimes called enlightenment, or for those who follow Jesus' teaching, salvations. And to the Buddhists, it is the ending of all suffering. Liberation and awakening are other terms used to describe this transformation. The greatest achievement of humanity is not the works of art or science or technology, but simply the recognition of its own dysfunction and its own madness. And to recognize, we're getting towards the end. And to recognize one's own insanity is, of course, the arising of sanity, the beginning of the healing and the transcendence. It is hard, it is difficult, it is a new dimension of consciousness. And when that has begun to emerge on this planet, a first tentative flowering, those rare individuals who then spoke of this transformation, who spoke of sin, of suffering, of delusion, they said, look how you live. See what you are doing, the suffering that you are creating in your own life and the lives of others. They then pointed to the possibility of awakening from this collective nightmare of normal human existence, and they showed the way. At the time, the world was not yet ready for them, but as part of the human awakening, inevitably, they were mostly misunderstood by their contemporaries. But over time, their teachings became accepted. Yeah. And we're going to stop there for tonight with the reading. So I want you to pull your journals back out, and we're going to get acquainted with our own ego tonight. And we're going to start with just simply writing about, let me find my paper here. What is your current disposition to your ego? And we're also going to open this time up for discussion. So if you need to ask any clarifying questions about ego, please feel free to do that. I'll do my best to answer them. But if you want to take a few moments to journal about what is your current disposition to your ego. It's going to take about 30 more seconds, so finish up the thought you're on. This is a 3-part question, 3-part journal prompt. Okay, and the next part is, what is your definition of ego? In your own words, what is your definition of ego? So take about 30 more seconds here to finish up your thoughts on your definition of ego. And the last part of this 3-part prompt is, what is your definition of consciousness? We could even take it so far as enlightenment. What is your definition of consciousness? Your definition of enlightenment? So take about 30 more seconds to finish up here. Alrighty. So we're actually going to keep the ego journal prompts to ourselves for now, but be prepared for when we start our next call, or when we start our next call next week, we will start with this. So I'll give you a little homework assignment of doing any outside research and coming up with maybe a deeper understanding of the ego and what your disposition to the ego is. So I want you to keep your current answers, your raw answers, I will call them. And then I want you to go and do some research later this week to those same questions again. So I'll give you some spiritual texts in the reading list and point you in some directions. I'll offer you some articles throughout the week to check into about the ego. But we're going to start the next Sunday call with the discussion of ego, and I'm going to give you a couple of more prompts throughout the week about that. So I want to take just a few moments to do a screen share and what was I going to do screen share on? Oh, I just want to show you how to get to the Google Drive. First of all, is anyone having any trouble getting to the Google Drive? Basically what I do is I put in there any important forms that you have, and then any, I'm just going to show you anyways. Any important forms that you have, and any sort of follow-up notes as well. Also, for those who missed the Reiki history, I've been trying to upload it, but I'm just kind of stuck here on this screen. So I'm going to try again tomorrow. I've tried a few times to upload it. Don't know what the disconnect is. So some of you, all of you have received an email from me that should have the Google Drive, but it's basically whenever you log into your Google, you can kind of also go over here and go to your drive that way. If you don't have a Google account, if you're like going through Yahoo or something, then and then if you might have to like go through the link that I sent you. But if you click shared with me, it will be in that area. It's not on mine because I can't share it with myself. But we have a Reiki Training 2020 folder. Pull that up. So this basically has our community guidelines. Those were also sent out in the first email. It has the intro and syllabus of what kind of like, if you want to know what we're going to be learning each week, you can go on there and check that out. And then each week I will post kind of a summary or review of what was covered. I'm probably going to put the history, since it's just a video, and this week's call all together. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. But I just wanted to make sure everyone could see where this information is being stored. Reiki Training 2020. If you don't have access to that, let me know. I've also recently sent out, just in an email, just like an hour before this class, I sent out an email showing the, let me go back to here, showing the Reiki Save a Scholarship application. If you want to review that, it's pretty simple. And then also Reiki contract, the training contract. So wanted to share all of that with you all. And let me know if you have any questions. And the last piece is that we are going to go, I think I'm going to do a call with each of you this week. So if you have a day that will work better for you, I will be available this week every day except for Wednesday. If you have a day, you can either message me privately if you feel like going ahead and being proactive and putting that information in, like if you want to type it in the chat, what day this week you would like to do a call with me. On that call, so if you like need a minute to get your calendar out, go ahead and do that. On that call, we're going to, it's going to be like a one-on-one spiritual consultation. We're going to do some, I'm going to do some intuitive reading with you specifically for your healing path. And then we'll schedule when, or we might even do it then, but we'll schedule your distance healing that you're going to receive from me in order to prep you for your attunement. So my goal is that this week we move through everyone's individual healing. We'll do obviously a call next Sunday, and then that following week we're going to do your attunement. And so I want to give you guys 2 weeks to do the prep work that we talked about during orientation, like eating a healthy, clean diet. All of that information is back in all of that information is back in week 1 from, let me open this back up. Should have left it up. It's all back in week 1, orientation week. You open that up and you scroll all the way back down to the bottom. Take a minute to load. All in here. So list of suggested preparations, list here. So I want you guys to review that list, and before our call, before we hop on our one-on-one call, I want you all to kind of list out your plan, write it out in your journal, your plan for cleansing and clearing your system for the next 2 weeks. And it's really like the 7 days leading up to is most important. But kind of like if you go ahead and give yourself that additional week by like starting sometime this week before Wednesday, I would recommend, you're going to be better off in just like working out any kinks over this time and before our next call, and then the following week be really strong with your cleansing process before receiving attunement. So that was a lot of information thrown at you there. I appreciate all of you all being on this call with me. So some of you, I've sent out your contracts. Go ahead and give yourselves about 24 hours to read over those. But if you could get those back to me by tomorrow evening, that'd be ideal. And then we will figure out and schedule one-on-one calls. Does anybody want to put in the chat real quick, like what day this week will work for them? Just to hop on a call for like probably an hour, hour and a half max.
How's Wednesday?
So Wednesday is probably the only day. Yes, I'm free today or tomorrow. Wednesday is probably the only day that I'm not going to be available. I've got an all-day outing that I'm doing. I'm just going out to the woods to be out in the woods.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said that. Tomorrow is fine.
Okay, perfect. And I can obviously talk to multiple people on multiple days. So let me pull the chat up. Taylor, I'm not going to be available on Wednesday. Is there another potential day? And it can even be this weekend, but I'd love for it to be if today or tomorrow or Thursday is an option. Let me know. And Taylor, I could probably do if Wednesday is the only day, I could probably do really late Wednesday evening, but I just would need it to be tentative because I'm not quite sure what my evening plans will be on Wednesday. Tomorrow, so I got Nikki tomorrow. Yeah, Kenneth, I can schedule you tomorrow as well. So yeah, Taylor and Logan, you guys I'll message all of you, but if you guys have a day, just send me a message on Facebook or Voxer, whatever's easier, or text, whatever is easier, and we'll get that worked out. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for all of you to receive just a distance healing Reiki session and kind of get your feedback on that as well. Well, we'll take probably the next 5 minutes. If anybody has anything that they just need to unmute and share before we close circle tonight, feel free to do so. You can share about anything that's on your heart or from the teaching we had today or anything like that. I'll take any feedback too. No pressure. It's an option.
So I do have something. Are you there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So throughout this journey, I've been studying a lot. I've also had moments of being very calm, and my intuition was telling me that I need to disconnect from the mind, and that book just kind of confirmed that. So do you think the best thing maybe to do right now, at least this is what I'm thinking, just maybe take a break, just meditate instead of trying to learn so much?
Yes. I would strongly agree. I get caught up in this same sort of egoic pattern of constantly wanting to learn. It's part of the process of breaking the ego, but we do have to then take what we've learned and apply it. And ideally, I think it's all a practice, right? There's no wrong or right. But in my opinion, what you learn and how long you practice it, your practice time should be longer than the time you spent learning it. With someone who has ADHD, I tend to want to learn something, and then when I get into the practice of it, especially meditation, it can be uncomfortable, right? Because you're just sitting with awareness. You're just sitting with what is. And I needed to start with guided meditations, which is perfectly fine, but guided meditations that had onslaughts or long periods of silence in them. And then various mantra meditations work really well for me. And I just encourage you all to kind of do the studying and decide which one, like what type of meditation works for you, but then just commit for, like, even if it's just like, I'm just going to do an experiment, and for 3 days, I'm going to meditate for this amount of time, and whatever it is that you need to do. And we have that group on Facebook. If you're doing something in your practice, I would love to hear about it. And it's encouraging to everyone else. If you're like, I'm doing this, and it's also a way to hold yourself accountable. So for me, you're going to start seeing a lot more of that, because I realize, like, I need to be forward about what my practice is. So that's another way to have accountability in that. Great question.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Well, if there are no other questions, let's go ahead and bring our hands.
Hey, wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hey, so are you familiar with the Hawkins scale?
The Hawkins scale. I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know that I've ever done anything with it. You care to enlighten us? Share it.
Yeah, so this is just something that I've been researching on personally, and it's the guy who invented muscle testing, and he also invented a scale of consciousness with muscle testing. So muscle testing, or kinesthesiology, is a format of like, say you press on your arm when it's raised, and you say a positive statement, and then if it's positive, usually the arm will like stay really strong and locked. But if it's a negative statement, the arm will usually drop. The same thing happens when you ask questions, and you can kind of divulge information from these things, and it kind of suggests that you're tapping into an energetic field that is outside of yourself and is answering these questions for you, be it spirits or just source energy, or collective consciousness, or just your higher self, whatever you want to believe. And yeah, he developed this scale using it to like kind of determine the different layers of consciousness and like what is limiting the human consciousness. And he wrote a book on it called The Power, or Power versus Force. And like kind of power is where you're, in the more enlightened side of consciousness, and force is where you're struggling and have to force your way through. But yeah, so I was testing with that the other day, and it's super interesting. I'm not really sure if I'm doing it entirely right, but I was doing the kinesthesiology part of it with pendulums. I'm not sure if that was invented through muscle testing, or if that has been around longer. I don't know if that was just like that guy's adaptation on it and his scientific research of it. But it's pretty cool, and I'm not sure if I'm entirely doing it right, but the consciousness scale is really, really intriguing to me at the moment. And
could I possibly ask Logan a question about that book?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, like how is it? Because I just bought it like recently, so I was just curious.
That's super interesting that you just got it too.
I just got it like 2 days ago.
I'm like maybe 30% of the way through it, so I'm not I'm not super sure on it. But I was listening to a meditation slash informational video that this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he mentioned it.
Is he a YouTuber?
He is, yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I just posted him the other day, so you may have seen my post of him.
Heck yeah, he's a good guy. I like him.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying his material. But yeah, he was the one that suggested that one at the end of one of his videos, and it's cool stuff. But I guess I was asking questions about other people's levels of consciousness through that testing system, and that's where I hit the boundary with the pendulum that I mentioned in group chat.
Yeah, where it stopped. So, I'm just going to give a little bit of information of what I know about where penduluming. It's called the overarching thing is called divination, and it does come from that same, like you said, you're right, nail on the head. Of it does come from source energy, so it's very similar to where Reiki comes from. And they actually, in advanced Reiki training, I actually will teach pendulum work and other forms of divination. I don't teach muscle testing because there is like a very extensive training for that. I actually go to a nutritionist and she uses muscle testing, which I love. I've also gone through emotional polarity therapy extensively last year, which if you really want to blast through your ego, it uses polarity with magnets as well as that same muscle testing in terms to divinate what egoic block you need to work through. But I'm getting a little squirrel here, but the way where it comes from, where divination comes from, it's one of the oldest forms of magic that has been around, and it's been used by various different entities. Like the Catholic Church used it for a while, but only for very specific things, like to do with childbirth. So I've used a pendulum for several years now, but as I've developed that skill over the time and developed it along with my Reiki training, because I learned about it actually in advanced Reiki training. I also learned that it's tied in with like feng shui uses it, but in the way that it believes that the earth has fault lines, and they're not fault lines because we know there's fault lines, but they're called like grid lines. So there's black grid lines, and then there's like areas of clear space. And in feng shui, they believe like you shouldn't build your house on a black line. And what that ties into with divination is that, and it would make sense with the polarity therapy, that way that works, is that so there's magnetism within the earth and within the earth's core. You know, we have the North Pole and the South Pole, and ways that make the reasons compasses work to direct us north and south and east and west is because of their polarity. So our bodies are mostly made up of water, and water, hydrogen, is pulled in different directions because of polarity. So the essence of how divination works, and I really hope I'm not butchering this, is that the energy does come from a higher power, but it comes from the higher power that's being spread out throughout the earth and to do with the polarity. And whatever answer you're seeking is going to pull you in the proper direction that you need to go in. So, and we do learn this. We'll actually be learning this in the next couple of weeks, but you can do this simply by standing. We'll start out with this exercise, but I'll go ahead and give you an overview. You do this by standing, grounding yourself, and then asking yourself a yes or no question. And you start out, if you want to practice this before we meet next Sunday, you start out by asking yourself a yes or no question that you know the answer to, like, is my name Betsy? And just notice what direction your body is pulled in gently. It's not like a jerk. It's just like notice which way your body sways when you're asking it that question. And then after you've asked yourself several, like you already know the answers, but you ask yourself some very basic questions. Then start to ask yourself some questions you might have been wondering. It could be as simple as, should I eat this for dinner? Whatever's in front of you. Should I eat this for dinner? And notice how your body responds. I'm not going to, in the next call, I'll give you like what the general answers are, like what general way the body moves for different answers. But yeah, there's many layers to divination and complication, or not complication, but it's complicated because there's many different aspects that play into the role of divination. but essentially in its most fundamental use, it was used to discover streams flowing under the Earth's surface from like settlers that they would go around with dowsing rods, which is another form of divination still used today, but not as common. And the dowsing rods, when someone would get close to a body of water, hydrogen is drawn to hydrogen. So the dowsing rods would then cross over one another. They're these metal rods that you hold that are just an L shape. They would then cross. And if the further you got away from water, you would uncross. But they also started to realize that you could ask various questions and the rods would react in the same way. I love divination. I wish I knew like the in-depths because I know it's tied to biology and the way that your hydrogen atoms are reacting in your body. And then it also has to deal with polarity of the earth and its surfaces and what's like and the core of the earth. And then it's also tied to source energy. So if there was actually a field of science that I could go into, it would be divination, if that's a field of science. Thanks for bringing that up. I hope I didn't create more confusion on that.
No, it's cool. I'm just learning about it myself, so I'm more just giving a show and tell rather than knowing much myself.
No, love it.
Probing.
Yes, love it, love it. Yeah, and actually, if upon your all's request, if anyone wants to receive some divination work, I can use my pendulum on our one-on-one call that we're having this week. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and if whenever we have the retreat, I can let you guys borrow mine and mess with it and try it, so we could all get a chance.
Yeah, actually, the pendulums are very usually, again, this is my understanding, but pendulums are generally tied to a specific person's energy and won't always work for someone else. We could try, and we can use Reiki to do this, we could try clearing it and letting each person use it. But yeah, and it also just go with your intuition. So totally up to you. And I actually had to carry my pendulum for a long time. I can't remember how long, but several months before it was kind of like aligned with my energy and would work for me. And my first one broke before I ever got to use it. Yeah, it was not the right one. I picked it because I thought it was pretty, which is very egoic way to pick a pendulum.
That's crazy that it broke though. Like it's just like, I am not yours.
Yep, it literally broke on the day of Reiki training where we were going to learn about it. I was like,
what?
And I had it for a long time. I was like, dang.
That's wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Well, thank you all so very much for being on the call tonight. I look forward to our one-on-one that we'll be scheduling this week. And let me know if you have any questions before then or in the group. And remember to practice your Boysen scanning and post any just kind of accountabilities. Like if you want to add something to your practice or to your self-care plan or anything you uncover about your ego, let's share that in the group. So that way we can all be learning from one another.
Sounds perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you all. I look forward to talking to you one-on-one and definitely seeing you all in the group next Sunday. Thank you all so much. I am you and you are me. The highest in me honors and sees the highest in each of you. Namaste.
I see you. Namaste. By the way, if anybody, once you guys get your self-care plans written out, I would love to see those just because I'm still working on my own. So it'd be cool to be able to bounce these off of each other as well to, if we don't know about certain things. Like I picked up one from one of Betsy's other people called effigy breathing that I'm going to give a shot to. Yeah, if you guys have any cool personal ones, even if you don't think they're abnormal, like some of us might not know about them.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be cool to share and learn from each other.
Definitely. Let's like definitely put that in the group chat and like spread ideas. I love that.
Yeah, love it.
All right. Well, everybody have a good night and namaste.
All right, you too. Namaste.
Same.
Good night.